The fiction writer Maxwell Conroe had to walk back home for 5 miles over a dirt track in pitch darkness. A fit person with good vision can walk the route in about an hour or two. But not until sunrise would Maxwell re-emerge from the mountains. The strange thing is that his mind continues to make up stories about what happened to him on that memorable night. Let me read for you how the fiction writer Maxwell Conroe recollects the events in his story entitled Close Encounter. At some point, I smack into the ground, rather forcefully. I briefly lose my sense of orientation and taste dust. I have literally bitten the dust. Then, I hear snorting nearby. The snorting grows more intense. I estimate the beast is only about 8 meters away. I hear chewing sounds. Maybe it's digging up roots. Fuck! The hog! There's no way I can fall asleep with this omnivorous monster right next to me. I left the house of my friends in a jolly state. Sure enough, a 5-kilometer hike was not a big deal. I waved goodbye to the silhouettes of my hosts standing in the doorway of their candlelit room. My main worry was to steady myself and to relatively gracefully leave the premises. The driveway was a dirt road of considerable complexity, with side tracks a bit overgrown, and everything ahead was plunged in a confusing blanket of deep darkness. It was pitch dark. The only thing that reassured me was that I was still in contact with planet Earth. The sound of my own footsteps confirmed that fact every step. The sound of my own footsteps was the only certainty I had in my head right now. I paused, trying to get used to the darkness. Millions of stars were overhead, but none of them stood out as particularly bright. No moon was seen. How was this again with the lunar phases? Full moon, new moon. This night was moonless, which is the phase before the reappearance of the moon. The lunar cycle takes about a month, 29.53 days to be precise. I had looked this up when scribbling down my recollections of the dark journey. Our calendar month is really based off the moon's phases, something we rarely are reminded of. My luck, or misfortune, was to have no moonlight whatsoever exactly on a night that I needed our dear moon the most. My intoxicated mind tried to make a decision. In which direction should I take my next step? Very faintly, I could make out the contours of the surrounding hilltops with distinct gaps in 2 directions, about 90 degrees apart. Those gaps corresponded to the bends in the main dirt track. I knew well. Either of these tracks could eventually bring me back to the nearby village, where I had rented my cozy apartment with a lovely sea view. So I staggered down the rightmost trail, which was the longer route of about 8 kilometers. It did not take me long to realize that, perhaps, I had been a bit too optimistic about my nightly journey. I simply could not stay on the dirt track, because it was invisible in the dark. The only way to forge ahead was by trial and error. Not a very efficient method to make headway, as one can imagine. At some point, I smacked onto the ground, rather forcefully. I briefly lost my sense of orientation and tasted dust. I had literally bitten the dust. After some heavy breathing and profuse cursing, I rolled onto my butt. Only then did I feel a stinging pain from under the kneecap of my left leg. Wow! No joke! This was hurting. I felt some fluid oozing out of my knee. As I could not see anything, I tasted the oozing stuff that was now stuck to my fingers. This definitely was fresh blood. I had gotten myself in quite a mess here. Bleeding stops faster when you lie low. Literally, I knew. My inebriated brain cells concluded that I should try to rest up a bit, maybe even fall asleep till first daylight would come. Then I would be fine and could safely continue my return trip. Being under the weather was my predicament. Fortunately, the weather provided for a comfortable temperature. Slightly chilly, but I would be fine. My state was not just a tipsy one. Rather, I was declaring myself pretty seriously intoxicated, with everything around me turning hazy and blurring my thought process. Also, I had lost all sense of time and distance. Entirely. How far was I from the house of my friends? I did not know. How long ago had I left them? I had no clue. How late was it? Maybe midnight? No clue. Then something frightening happened. A thunderous sound of hooves came down the dirt road. What was this? I quickly suspected this was a herd of feral pigs. They are known to roam about at night looking for food and water. There were some snorting sounds too. These were definitely wild hogs. Fortunately, I was lying a bit off-road, and feral pigs take the easy route. I could already smell their body odor and a whirl of dust coming down the track with a light breeze. The dust irritated my eyes, nostrils, and lungs. I coughed a bit. The sound of the hooves was still swelling. A huge herd, maybe 20, 30 animals, was running right past me. At closest range, I guess they were only a couple of meters away from me. Then the sound, to my relief, quickly waned. Or so I thought. Briefly after the noise of the travelling pigs had started ebbing away, there was a distinct sound nearby, and there was some snorting too. I did not like it. I figured there was a laggard, maybe a boar, which had picked up my smell and now was curious to find out more. I knew about stories of feral pigs that had killed people. They may even eat us, if they are particularly in need of proteins, which of course they always are. It may sound barbarous, but hey, how many pigs are eaten by humans every minute? Would I now be the target of the pig's ultimate revenge? I sat up, but my knee really sent out stinging pain signals. Never mind the damned leg, I thought, as I scrambled up to my feet. In an instinctive act of self-defense, I screamed as loud as I possibly could. Then I went quiet to take inventory of the effect of my self-invented pig deterrent mechanism. My nightly companion was not deterred at all. The snorting just grew more intense. I estimated the beast was maybe 8 meters away. I also heard chewing sounds. Maybe it was digging up roots. Fuck the hog, I thought. There was no way I could fall asleep with this omnivorous monster right next to me. I also picked up a whiff of its smell. Pigs have an incredibly strong body odor. Some of it almost resembles human sweat. The pig odor mixed with my own alcohol breath in a strange way. To defend myself against a potential pig attack, I needed some sort of weapon. So I started feeling around for rocks of sizable weight. The one that had cut into my knee would do. But I did not find anything but gravel in my closest proximity. If I wanted to succeed, I needed to move a bit sideways to inspect the space immediately around me. Apparently, I was not very sturdy on my feet. I stumbled straight into a ditch. Bushes brushed past my sore knee, hitting the wound in a most unpleasant way. Yikes! Just when I thought that this was not the best part of my journey, suddenly huge floodlights came on. First, there was the light, then the sound of car engines. I was blinded by the abundance of light. Slightly to my left side, I could now see the boar. It was lying on its side, in an odd way, and was panting. And a convoy of cars came careering down the dust trail. Damn it, I thought. Hunters. From being worried about possibly being food for a hog, a much bigger fear now emerged. I could be shot. The pig next to me was making gurgling sounds. The poor animal, it finally dawned on me, must have already been shot. The hunters had seen their hog, and the cars came to a halt. They had their guns ready to give the hog the final fatal shot. One of the guys came over to me. "What are you doing here?" he asked. Before I could answer, a loud bang went off right next to me. The hog literally screamed like a pig in its final moments. The conversation with my interrogator temporarily paused. He walked over to his friend, and together they took care of the hog. They hauled it onto their truck bed. Then they seemed to confer, as if deciding about my fate. "Hey, guys, what about me? I sure could use some help." The other fellow pulled out a flashlight and strolled over to me. "How are you doing?" he asked. That voice! I recognized my friend Paco del Plomo. "Hi, Paco," I said. "I'm glad you came and did not take me for a pig." The rest became a tall tale. My wounded knee was quickly dressed. As we all sat around the stove in Paco's cozy adobe house at El Plomo, a bottle of gin, we decided, was the best medicine. I'm no longer so sure about that last judgment.